Welcome to Jacobson Orchards. We're going to make tomato sauce. What do you start with? Well, farm fresh tomatoes. These were just picked out in the garden. Actually, all the range from perfectly ripe to a little bit not ripe. Because a little bit not ripe will add some acidity, some dimension. Whereas the perfectly ripe, of course, is going to add the flavors as well as the sugars. What do you do with a bad spot? Actually, you just cut it out. Or some bad spots actually have dimensions of flavors to them. So it's not a bad spot. You might go ahead and just cook with that spot. Taste it later. We're not talking about complicated here. We're talking about tomatoes in the pan. Just keep pumping them in. I've just got a fire on this pan. I just want it all simmering. So right now the pan's getting hot. I'm going to start chopping these tomatoes. I've got to get sort of squished in there. I want that thing to start cooling off the bottom of the pan. Just keep pumping them in. Whoa, starting to break down. Looking good. So it's getting thicker, as you can see, bubbling very nicely. One of the important things to do is to put that spatula all the way down and make sure you scrape the bottom. You don't want anything building up on the bottom. That's when things burn. Don't let it build up on the bottom. It starts to burn then. Certainly if you burn it, don't throw it away. Pour it out. If you got pitch black on the bottom, don't scrape that up, because that's not caramel, that's pitch black carbon. But in between the pitch black carbon and your sauce is a nice little caramely brown, just like you like to get now and then. So gently cleaning it like that adds a dimension of flavor. We're getting to a good spot. Sort of thick, boiled down some, looking good. You notice I got some tomato leaves right here. I'm mostly going to be extracting the flavors out of them, extracting the aromas out of that. I just want to add a little something or other. Now I'm going to be pulling these back out again, but they're putting some sauce in the sauce. So all the flavors are soaked out now. And what I got here is boiled tomatoes. I don't got sauce yet. So next I'm going to do one of two things. I can actually strain out all of the tomato skins and seeds, and I got sauce. But I like actually the texture that it gives it. I want the fibers, I want all the dimensions to it. So I end up using an immersion blender. They may not have had that back in old Italy, but right now we got it here. So this is getting pretty homogeneous now. Actually, it looks nice and broken up. But let's take a look. Look at that. Sauce. Now at this point some people say, well, what about the garlic? What about the basil? What about salt and pepper? It's your tomato sauce. At this point you can do whatever you want to with it. But me, actually, what I like to do is I like to keep it relatively plain. Maybe a little salt, increase the preservation and add to the flavor. But if I've got plain tomato sauce, then I can make a garlic sauce, or I can make another kind of sauce. I can even make tomato juice with this. But if I start to garlicize it and pestoize it and stuff like that right now, then essentially I've already narrowed down its options. So I like a generic sauce like this. You might say, well, it's a little thin for sauce. Thanks for sharing. But I can thicken it up. But I usually can't thin out the sauce. So I prefer a little thinner sauce than I prefer a thicker sauce. I might want to get those little fibers out. Well, just use my immersion blender. Or run this through a sieve. Make it tomato soup. And actually, if I did run it through a sieve, I'd have a very fine consistency, great mouthfeel. It's your sauce. You get to do what you want to with it. Now, what are we going to do with this sauce? How are we going to keep it? Many times I'll just pour it in a plastic bag, label it, put it in the freezer. Frozen tomato sauce. But in this case, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to can it or jar it. And so this is the pan that we're going to be boiling the jars in. Actually, standard ball jar, whatever brand you want, large mouth. Easy to pour stuff in, cap goes on, nice and hot though, going to be nice and hot, tighten down, the whole thing snaps, we can put it in the refrigerator, but more importantly we can keep it in the pantry. It's preserved, it's jarred. That's it folks, this is tomato sauce. This is Peter Jacobson, Jacobson Orchards. Love cooking with you. Bye-bye.